I'm talking about new callers beginning and doing the first steps into sight calling. Um, what I would like for this particular session, because this one is specifically geared for new callers and for experienced callers to better their art, but also for experienced callers to help mentor new callers down the line. So please, if there are any new callers at the end of this and you want to try something out or do this, we can pull up the Tamination screen, have a look at it, and see what you want to do, and then we can sit down and discuss it afterwards. It's going to be open for a while. This is a topic that has been asked for about 7 or 8 times now, so we finally got to it. I do apologize for the delay. And Mark, just wave your hand up there. Mark is our technical expert. I want to say thank you to him. He posts everything up on the Facebook pages, as well as hosts the video platforms and the information platforms on the OC Callers website, which he maintains that and links to all of these presentations and pretty much all of the other presentations that people are doing. So if you've missed a presentation, you can just go to occallers.com or the Orange County Callers Association, type it in, and you'll find all Mark's work up there for you to download and have a look at. So without any further ado, I'm going to start on the presentation. So Mark, can you keep an eye on the chat just in case any questions come in, because I won't be able to see anything if I'm presenting here. And did that come up okay?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Here.
Okay, so what we're going to be talking about is simple sight calling for a new caller. Okay, we're not going into this is going to be sight calling 101, or this is going to be how you sight call. And at the end of this session, you're not going to be a fully geared, ready to go sight caller, but you will have the tools to take the first steps into that foray or take further steps into bettering what you already do. So with that, there's a simple qualification that is necessary. These are very, very important considerations. No caller, I don't care how long, how good you are, if you're mentoring somebody, or if you, how smart you are, no caller should start calling by learning how to sight call. Okay. Sight calling does not replace learning how to call techniques. That was something that was thrust forward and pushed and pushed and pushed in the late 70s and the early 80s, that you don't need to learn how to call and move dancers if you know how to sight call. All you got to do is be able to move the dancers and resolve a square. That is, I think the technical term is what comes out of the north end of a southbound bull. Okay. Sight calling is a lot more than just moving dancers around the floor. And this is the one I always get in trouble with. Sight calling and sight resolution are two completely different things. Okay. Sight resolution is a technique to resolve the dancers. Sight calling is something completely different. It's not about resolving. That's one part of it. Okay. And as always, you have to know your foundations first. And I'm going to be talking a fair bit about that. So first and foremost, you've got to know how to move dancers along the square grid. The square grid is that box that goes around the dancers. And within that box, there's a set of 4 spots that move east-west and a set of 4 spots that move north-south. And that's usually what's referred to as the grid. And you've got to know how to move dancers through the middle of that grid and around the outside of that grid. That's the kind of stuff you need to know movement mechanics for, what the actual movements do. That is very simple movement mechanics and very simple formation management. And as a new caller, you learn some of these techniques, such as what's called the basic traffic pattern, or affectionately referred to today as the chicken plucker. So that's if you're in an 8-chain-4, right and left through, dive through, centers pass through, right and left through, dive through, centers pass through. That's moving dancers through the through the basic traffic pattern and across the grid. You have to know that before you even start sight calling, because you have to know that in order to incorporate modules and to do all these other kinds of things. You also need to know, for instance, from lines, changing the aspect, pass through, bend the line. You're changing the facing aspects. You're not changing a whole heck of a lot, but you're changing the facing aspects of where the dancers are, so it feels like they've got a lot of flow and movement. And you've got to know things like circulates, and that's moving two of the dancers, depending on the way you're set up, one of the dancers, moving all of the dancers, or moving them as couples within that same traffic pattern. They've got to move around the square to feel that they're interacting, to feel that they're moving, so that they're not all feeling that they're facing the same way all the time. They're dancing exactly the same thing each time. They may be, but by moving them and changing the walls they're facing or changing who they're interacting with, it will feel like a whole brand new dance. And that doesn't mean it has to be complex or difficult. So if you have good foundations, they take you from this little chicken dancing over here, to all of these things, doing the same thing, but just a little bit differently. And that is the base start of learning how to sight call. So in order to start sight calling, and the very, very basics, you must understand what an individual call does. And you've got to also understand what combinations of calls do to maneuver the dancers in a flowing manner. What this means is you've got to understand the basics of movement mechanics and the basics of formation management and how individual movements affect the dancers on the floor. Okay? This will tell you what the movement does, where it puts the dancers, what their movement direction is, what hands are free, and what kind of action that those dancers are going to be expecting after they finish that call. There's been a lot of discussion on movement analysis sheets. They're absolutely fantastic. And it's something that every caller should be doing all the time, going back and reviewing their movement mechanics sheets and their call analysis sheets, so they can see what is my flow coming into a movement, what is my flow coming out of a movement, what hand is free coming in, what hand is free going out, all of those kinds of things. It's important that you understand what each part of the movement does, because this allows you to begin to understand how each part contributes and works together with others to make the whole dance work. All of these things start to add up to an understanding of not only what the movement does, but what the dancers do, and all of these things contribute to smooth dancing and body flow. So let's just look at a couple of simple examples. So if I look at right and left through, okay, I'm not going through the movement mechanics because you should know the definition. You should know what it does. You should know how it works. Right hand, join right hands, right hand pull by, you let go as you pass. Left hand is extended, join left hands, right hand in the small of her back, turn her around with the center of pivot of access. Everything that's all in the definitions, what a right and left through. But you need to understand that a right and left through takes facing couples from one side to the other side. It just switches them over. If I look at square through 4 takes facing couples and puts them on the same footprint, generally, but back to back with the partner that they started with, and the right hand is free. They're changing the aspect or the wall that they're facing. Square through 3 essentially does a partner trade and ends with the left hand free. Those are the kinds of things you need to know. Wheel around is a couples move, not an individual move, but it's a couples move within a group. And it turns them around with a left hand flow. So that means the right hand dancer is moving forward with the right hand free. If we look at Dixie style to an ocean wave from facing couples, that takes a right hand dancer across, turns half left with an opposite to end in a left hand wave. So I've not only changed directions, I've changed formations, and I've also changed aspect. The next action should be forward or a center's right hand movement for comfort. Those are the kinds of things you need to know in individual movement mechanics. None of that has to do with learning to sight call. That has to do with learning the basic mechanics of movement modules. You need to know that in order to start sight calling. You need to know that in order to start module calling. Okay. The same thing applies to combination moves. So for instance, if I'm in normal facing lines, Pass through, wheel, and deal is a combination. A lot of people call these mini combinations flow modules, and that's exactly what they are. And they don't have to be massive, long combinations of movements. A module doesn't have to take me from a corner box to a partner line or a corner box back to a partner box. A module just has to take the dancers from point A to point B with a purpose of achieving something. It's something that's done for a reason. So for instance, pass through, wheel, and deal takes us from lines to a double pass through formation. I've got the right hand couple in the original line in the center, but it doesn't change the walls we're facing. That's part of the mechanics. It's the same thing as doing individual movement mechanics, but you're doing it on combinations of movements. You know what movement works with another movement. Now you're putting them together. If I take a static square and I call heads pass through and separate around one, that takes us from a static square with a flow to facing boy, boy, girl, girl lines. And the dancers will have an expectation of a forward movement for either the center dancers that were active or all of the dancers changing the facing walls for the heads. So the heads are going to change, end up facing the side walls. Once they get into that position of that boy, boy, girl, girl line, they're either going to want to do a forward action, or those centers alone are going to want to do a forward action. So the original sides will step apart together. That's the expectation for the dancers. And it works with the same. If I have facing normal couples and I call a right and left through followed by a Dixie style, the right and left through tells me, okay, I've got a forward sweeping action. Right hand dancer has a right hand free and is moving forward with a pivoting turn as a couple movement. A Dixie style is that right hand dancer. So I know those two movements blend together. But if I look at them as a foundation or as a movement combination or a flow module, right and left through and Dixie style takes us from a facing couples to a left hand wave with the expectation of the centers doing a right hand action, or the centers doing either the centers or all the dancers doing a forward action, such as circulate or end circulate, something like that. It also changes which wall we're facing. And then we've got other things like from a standard 8-chain-4 formation. If I do square through 3 trade by, that takes me from an 8-chain-4 formation back to an 8-chain-4 formation, but it just changes the center couples facing direction. It's like if I had the center couples do a partner trade and pass through, that kind of thing. Okay, it has them now facing the other couple and a different wall, but the original outsides are facing the same. I've got to look at all those kinds of things. I've got to look at what is the anticipation for all the dancers after that combination. In this case, it's a forward with a right hand action, but both hands are free. It could be a left hand or it could be a right hand action that follows. As long as it's prompted properly, it's still going to be a forward action. The last thing I want to do is call a backward action, because that's contrary to dancer anticipation. So as I stressed at the beginning, foundations first. It's important that before learning to sight call that you are able and you should have a good working knowledge from analyzing every call used in the program you're calling. So if you're a basic caller and that's all you call is the basic program, you should have done call analysis on every call in that basic program. If you're calling at the A1 level, you want to have done every single call and done a call analysis sheet on every single call through basic, mainstream, plus, and A1, so that you know what each call does and what it's going to do, where you have to start it and where it finishes. And then you have to also be able to start analyzing the individual calls and call combinations. And we're going to look a little bit at those. Somebody in the waiting room. You should know how to do most of this stuff already from working and developing modules, because all of this is part of what you learned in your basic foundation skills of movement mechanics, modular mechanics, and formation management. But before sight calling, you will need a knowledge at a minimum of hand availability, that's before and after each call, body flow before and after each call, and any changes of formation, arrangement, sequence, state, and relationship that the calls or combinations create. Now, what some callers will say is you need to know, if I call spin chain through, what does the phasar do and what does this change, and is this going from a 1P24 right hand wave or an L501 left hand wave. You do not need to know that. What you do need to know is if it takes me from a right hand wave to a left hand wave, have I moved? Have I crossed the girls? Have I changed a partner relationship? What's my start state? What's my end state? What's the sequence of the boys and the girls? I don't care about sequence for resolving. I just want to know what's happening with the dancers. Did one of the boys move to the other side? Did one of the girls move to the other side? What's happening? Those are the kinds of things you need to be aware of. Don't worry about what the name of the formation is. Don't worry about what all of that other kind of stuff is, because it's not important. Names like that are only important when you're talking to another caller, so you both know exactly where the dancers are as a point of reference. What we're worried about here is moving the dancers and being able to see what they do start to finish. Okay. All of that is learned through development and use of modules. All of that is learned through the basis of your formation management and your movement mechanics. And here's another controversial statement. The use of modules is part of a good sight caller's repertoire. Module use is part of sight calling, no matter what anybody tells you. I have, in 25 years of putting this challenge out, said, any caller that is a true sight caller that does not use modules, I want you to prove it to me. And not one person has been able to do that so far. Okay, so remember this. Sight calling is just one other choreographic management tool that callers use to provide additional variety, add a little bit of excitement to the dance, give a little bit of free flowing. Unfortunately, too many callers try and skip the fundamentals and they dive headfirst into full extemporaneous sight resolution. That's where it falls apart. A lot of callers feel pressured by their peers or their mentors to just get up and do it, move the dancers around, and then resolve. Sight resolution is a technique that can be applied from all sorts of different situations. Sight calling is the ability to move dancers around with a purpose to get them to where you want to be, so that the reality is you really don't have to know how to do extemporaneous sight resolution, because the dancers, you're going to know where they are. If you're going to learn a resolution technique and then just do sight resolution, it is a bad approach. As a result, the dancers usually suffer from things like bad timing, bad body flow. The callers usually, the reason they suffer is because the caller is giving them bad timing and generally bad body flow, because all he's worried about or she's worried about is moving the dancers and then getting to some place where they can resolve. They're not paying attention to what the dancers are actually doing on the journey. And quite frankly, it is really nice to take a nice road trip with a bunch of group of friends and enjoy the journey on the way, even if you do get to the campsite and it rains the night you were going to go there. That journey is most of the event. That interaction is most of the event. Just getting there and having it rain the day you leave is not the camping trip. It's not the journey. That journey's got to be well controlled as well. Okay, jumping in and just trying to do it all at once without good fundamental foundations is the reason why bad dancing, bad timing, bad flow happens. For a new caller, take this to heart. Do not ever feel rushed or forced to start sight calling. Do not ever feel rushed or forced to do sight resolution or extemporaneous sight resolution. It is important that you learn one resolution technique to get you out of trouble. That's a start. You can build on that later. But there's so much to learn before you start learning sight resolution and sight calling and all that other kind of stuff. So if it feels wrong to you, stop. Chances are you're not ready, regardless of what anyone else thinks. The important thing is to remember, if you're not having fun and you're nervous, the dancers are going to feel the same. But if you're having fun, you're nervous, but you're confident enough to try, then they're going to feel that and they're going to feel confident. If you don't feel that, then quite simply, you're not ready. So don't force yourself to do it. You got more stuff to learn first. It's important to understand the hand and flow changes of individual calls but it's virtually impossible to consistently do this for each call when you're sight calling. To understand the movement mechanics of this call takes me to that call does this call takes me to that call does this call takes me to that call does this. And doing that for every single call, seeing and thinking and everything else is virtually impossible to do. Okay? You can do it for a series of calls, you can do it for a short time, but this is why sight callers use modules. They can go from one call to a combination flow module, or they can do a fixed point module, such as a 0 module, corner box to corner box. They know what the flow combinations are, they know what the sequence of calls do, and that allows them to get that mental rest. The good news is, when you do it and you start looking at individual movement mechanics and mixing those in modules together, it makes for smooth combinations, it makes the dancing easier, it makes the calling easier. Okay. So to better understand that, we're going to look at a couple of examples. Okay, so let's look at the following sequence. Picture this. We've got facing couples, and here's the little, this is just a little flow module. It's not a 0 module or anything else. It's just a series of movements that flows well together. Right and left through, Dixie style to an ocean wave, swing through, chain down the line. Okay, so I know that that's a combination that works, but let's do it as a new caller, and I'm going to do one movement to the next. Okay, so I think right and left through, what does that do? Okay, that takes me from facing couples. The couples are going to change place with the expectation of a right hand dancer movement forward with the right hand free, and it's going to change the sequence of the dancers, both the boys and the girls, by putting them on the opposite side. Okay, so I've started that. I've got facing couples. Now what am I ending up? I'm ending up with the right hand dancer with the right hand free. The left hand dancer's got the right hand behind the right hand dancer, and they don't have either hand really free for anything comfortable. The next movement I can call is a Dixie style. A Dixie style needs a right hand dancer with the right hand free. It's got a same group of 4 dancers, 2 facing couples. This is going to change my formation from a facing couple to a left hand wave with the expectation of a center's right hand action or an ends forward action. It's also going to change the arrangement from boy girl to girl boy. It's going to change the sequence of the ladies but not the men. It's going to change the pairing relationships of the dancers in the couple. It's also going to change the facing direction from north south to east west. Great, I've done that. I've got right hand free. I've got outside dancers. I'm in a left hand wave. The outsides have a right hand free. The centers have their left hands joined. No, the centers have their right hand joined. They've got the left hand joined with the outside dancer. Okay, what's the expectation? I've got centers waiting to do a right hand movement, or everybody waiting to do a forward action. What can I call from here? Swing through. Oh, I'm in a left hand wave. Swing through has to start with the centers or the right hand starting of a swing through. It starts and ends in a left hand wave with the expectation of moving forward for one or all of the dancers changing in the center. The start is a girl, boy, boy, girl in a wave. So that means the formation is unchanged, but the arrangement changes from girl, boy, boy, girl to boy, girl, girl, boy. So the sequence is going to change for the boys because they're going to move across the set, but the girls are not going to change, and the relationships have changed. And I'm following that with a chain down the line. So that's a right hand start action for the center dancers. That can only be done with the girls in the middle, so it fits well with the left hand wave. It changes the facing direction of the dancers from east to west, north to south. The formation changes from a left hand to a normal facing couples. The arrangement becomes standard boy-girl couples. The sequence changes for the girls, but not for the boys, and the relationship changes by exchanging partners after each movement. Well, that's 4 movements quickly analyzing. That's what you have to think of every time you sight call movement by movement by movement by movement. Trying to do that for an entire evening, I just did 4 movements. And the only reason it's done that slow is because I was just expressing roughly what happens in each of those movements. But that's what many callers do. That's what you as a caller do every time you're picking up that microphone and calling the movement. That kind of thought process is going through your head, and most of it's automatic. But trying to do that movement by movement by movement for an entire evening, call by call, is an exercise in forced difficulty. You're forcing frustration on yourself. You're resulting in getting yourself frustrated. And sometimes it ends up in both tears for both the callers and worse for the dancers. I have seen too many times where experienced, I call them pseudo mentors, have said, right, I just want you to get up there and start moving the dancer. Move. What's the next call? What's the next call? That is great in practice exercise. That's great in teaching forums like this. And that's where it should take place. But I've seen too many experienced callers go to a new caller and say, well, just get up and move the dancer, just get up there and sight call. And they don't give them that feeling of what they're going to do. And all you feel is their frustration build, 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 and it comes out the microphone. It is one of the worst things you can do to a new caller. There is, however, good news. We're going to look at that exact same sequence as a flow module. Okay, so if we have an understanding of the calls, which we do because we just went through them, let's look at the whole sequence holistically. We already know that the calls flow one to the next, and by making short combinations or flow modules, we've got a start point and an end point. Essentially, what's happening is that sequence of movements is becoming a single call for the purpose of analysis. So by now analyzing that combination, it gets simpler. We've already checked each movement for hand availability and it works. We don't have to think about that anymore, only the start and the finish. We've checked each movement for body flow in creating this module. So we already know that works. We only have to know what hand we need going in, what's free coming out. We've started in facing couples, we end in facing couples. So we've already got that. Essentially, right and left through, Dixie style to an ocean wave, boys start, swing through, chain down the line. All we've done is from facing couples, we've affected a ladies chain. That is so much easier to analyze when I'm sitting there and I get right. Pass through, bend the line. Okay, I need a second to think and see where they are. I want to do a ladies chain. Okay, great. Do the right and left through. Ladies lead Dixie style to an ocean wave. Boys start, swing through, chain down the line, lines up to the middle and back. I've essentially just called ladies chain. But I've done that as a flow module within my sight calling repertoire. That's what callers do. This is how we get flow modules. It's a combination of calls that flow and they're done for a specific purpose. For example, this particular sequence, the purpose I wanted to do was a ladies chain. And I may have had a focus movement, a Dixie style to a wave. Maybe that's the focus movement for this tip. So I've put my focus movement, I've affected my change that I want to do using a simple flow module that meets both of those terms. And I'm sight calling. Okay. So it's important to understand the foundation first tools. They help you understand what each call does. And only when that is complete can you begin to understand simple flow modules like the chicken plucker, right and left through, dive through, pass through, right and left through, dive through, pass through. Okay, that's a chicken plucker. Half a chicken plucker takes you halfway. Until you understand the flows, you're not going to really understand what these things are doing. Your magic modules, such as swing through, girls circulate, boys trade, boys run, bend the line. That takes me from a box to a line. Or vice versa, touch a quarter, all 8 circulate, boys run. That takes me from a line to a box. I don't have to worry about what everybody is doing each movement in those sequences. I know what the start point is, what my hand availability is, what my body flow is. I know what my body flow is coming out, and I know what hand availability is coming out. So I've got those modules in my head. And the same applies to your zero fill modules, such as swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, centers, pass through, or pass through, wheel and deal, double pass through, first left, next right. Those are the zero modules that I want to have a look and see where the dancers are because I'm getting ready to resolve. And the same thing applies to your invert and rotate sequences, like your basic box invert, star through, or from boxes, star through, pass through, bend a line, and star through. That's an invert and rotate. Or an invert and rotate from lines, which is right and left through, half sachet, pass through, ends fold, slide through. Or bend the line. Does exactly the same thing. So once you know and understand what these things do, you get these sequences and combinations that you can treat as a single movement. You know the start, you know the end, you know the flow, you know the hand, and you can put those in anywhere to achieve the goal that you want to do. So you'll also understand why they are fundamental combination tools to move the dancers quickly and efficiently. All of those modules I put are your foundation modules for a new caller starting out. You learn these modules, they're part of your basic set. They're part of your basic toolbox. You have to understand what they do. You're going to use these when you sight call. You're going to use these when you module call. You're going to use these as filler if you're going to take a singing call and say, right, I just put them in boxes, right? I want to do something here. You've already learned most of this stuff. This is why it's good. But understanding it and understanding how to apply it to the next step is vitally important. Delivered properly, what they're going to do, these combinations are going to move dancers quickly, smoothly, and efficiently. And when you deliver them properly in a flow or a sequence, they enhance the dancing experience by providing that wind in the face feeling, by providing that change of direction, by providing that feel that you're interacting with an entire square. Okay? There's a lot more to it than that, but those are the basic fundamental tools that a caller should have a good working of knowledge prior to even thinking about starting sight calling. Okay. Up to this point, we haven't even talked about sight calling as far as doing it. All of this stuff is the stuff you need to learn before starting. Okay. So remember what I said. Sight calling is not sight resolution. They are completely different animals. Okay. So we need to ask, what is sight calling? And for that, I'm going to drop back a bit here. Okay. I said it before, sight calling is just a choreographic management tool that callers use to provide a little bit more variety and a little bit of added excitement to the dance. It has nothing to do with a sight resolution technique. So we're not even going to look at sight resolution techniques. We've done that already. It's very important that as a new caller, you do not just jump into the deep end or dive into the deep end of full extemporaneous sight resolution, nor do you just jump into the idea of moving the dancers one to the next without any plan. If you do, your dancers will suffer. And they will usually suffer from bad timing and bad body flow because you're creating that. Tim Mariner said that a caller should think of learning to sight call like learning to swim. If you're learning to swim, it's best to get your feet wet, then get used to the water, then paddle around for a bit, bounce off the bottom for a while in your comfort zone, get a little bit deeper all the time. And eventually, this is after you've got your confidence in the water, you start to learn how to move around without your feet on the bottom of the pool and how to keep your head above water. Jumping into the deep end without any idea of how to swim and keeping your head above water is never a pleasant sensation. And if you were ever a child and you didn't know how to swim and dad or grandpa comes and picks you up and throws you in the deep end of the pool and you splutter and paddle, it's not a welcome sight. And there's a lot of people that will not go swimming for that reason. And they didn't learn any techniques. They never really get any better because there's no warmth of feeling of success. Well, exactly the same thing holds true for sight calling. If you don't have an understanding of those foundation fundamentals as noted, you're not going to have a pleasant experience learning to call, and your dancers are not going to have a pleasant experience dancing to you. When you focus on the most difficult form of sight calling first, new callers tend to miss the basic understanding of two very easy methods of choreographic management. Now we're going to get into what is the meat of this presentation. When you sight call, there are two very simple methods that you should start with. The first is one couple sight, and the next is two couple sight. And we'll explain what those mean. Okay, so if we're going to talk about one couple sight, this is what's commonly referred to as burnt image calling. It's where a caller will move the dancers from a known formation, and then he remembers, or he moves them into a known formation, I should say, and then he remembers the position of one couple or two dancers in that formation. Usually the two that are closest to them, or if there is a couple wearing the same color clothes in that group of four, where are they standing? He memorizes where they are standing, what their exact footprints are. And then the caller uses that to keep all those four dancers within the same boxed area. And when he wants to resolve, all he has to do is put them back into that original start location, put that one couple back in their original start location, and then use a modular or a known get out from that. So if you see it, what I have here, the caller moves the dancers to a known formation. So here's a square, and I've just taken a static square and called head square through. Okay. Then I take a snapshot, one couple. I've actually got two couples boxed, but I'm looking at, look at that. I've got yellow couples on the outside. I'm going to dance these four dancers. Hopefully you can see my cursor. These four dancers around. I'm going to keep them all together. I'm not going to send them anywhere. And I'm just going to bring it When I bring those two yellow dancers back on the outside, exactly those footprints, I've now done absolutely nothing. I've moved them around, but I'm back to that place where I can use my get out. In this case, a corner box get out. Okay, so if I look at this, I'm looking at one couple sight calling. So this can be done anytime you get facing couples. So if I call heads lead to the right and circle to the line, I can pick one couple on the line that's closest to me and say, right, those two couples that are closest to the line facing the side walls, but those two couples closest, I'm going to keep those four dancers together and I'm going to move them around and put them back on that footprint. And guess what? I'm back into that partner line. It's the same if I call heads square through. I'm going to look at the couple on the outside because they're already a matched couple. I'm going to move those four dancers around, bring them back to the same spot. So I've essentially what I've done here is I've taken a static square and I've called heads square through. And then I take a snapshot. That's the snapshot I'm taking, and I'm looking at this couple. So everything from here on in is two couple calling. I don't really care what the rest of the dancers are doing because there's a mirror aspect of the square. And with that mirror aspect, that tells me that whatever these couples in this box are doing, the other couples are doing the same thing. It's a very good and it's an easy way to practice your moving of the dancers around. It's easy to get home because all you got to do is put them on those footprints and they're resolved. It's very good for introducing a focus call. So in this example I have here, let's say that I wanted to focus. My focus for this tip is doing a half sashayed past the ocean. Okay, so I call head square through and then I snapshot. I burn the image of these number 4 couple here in yellow in my mind. I'm going to keep these 4 dancers together and I'm going to move the dancers to get them back into that position. So here's where I took my snapshot. That's the red box. I call swing through. They end up there. I call spin the top. These movements flow. I'm calling movement by movement here. I call a second spin the top just because I can. I call a hinge. Now I've changed it from facing side walls to head walls. I call a walk and dodge. That means the girls walk forward, the boys dodge over. I've got a forward action for the outside, for the girls. I've got a sideways action. Reverse wheel around. That gives me a pivot action. Still the girl going forward, the boy can pivot in and end up in facing couples. I'm half sashayed. Here's my focus call. I call past the ocean. Have the boys in the middle. Okay, they got that. I don't want to work too hard with them. So I'm going to simply get them back as fast as I can. Boys run, ladies trade. I paired up, wheel and deal. They're back on that footprint. Alaman left. Essentially what I've done is 2 couple dancing and nothing more than 2 couple dancing. I don't know why Tamination's closed on me. Okay, so if I look at that, where are we here? Settings. And facing couples. Okay, so if I called head square through, just as an example, okay, and then I take my snapshot. Don't worry about what color the dancers are. In fact, let's make these guys black and take the couple numbers off. No. Okay, my snapshot has the white couple on the outside in this footprint. And I call, this is what that whole sequence looked like. Swing through, spin the top again, single hinge, walk and dodge, reverse wheel around, forward and back, past the ocean. And I think I should put that on normal speed. Let's just go back a couple here. Okay, so after that hinge, I do a walk and dodge, reverse wheel around. Now I've got my half sashayed couples and I want my focus movement, which is past the ocean. So I pass the ocean. I make sure that the boys, I do a forward and back, past the ocean. Yep, they've got that. Now I want to get them home quickly. I want the white couple back here. So I'm going to move them to put them back on the same footprint. Boys run, ladies trade, they're paired, wheel and deal. They're back on the same footprint. and the dancers are resolved. And you can use that in a whole bunch of different ways. Let's go square set. Okay, so bugger. I mean, heads cannot square through from that formation. That doesn't make sense. 1 second. Okay. So if we look at the same thing, I've done head square through, a do, si, do. That's where I'm going to take my snapshot. So we'll just take them to that point. So head square through. Right, this is where I'm going to take my snapshot. Okay, my snapshot has the yellow couple on the outside. Do, si, do. Great, swing through. Spin the top. Notice these 4 dancers are all staying together. They're not going anywhere. I'm keeping them collectively. I'm only watching these 4. There's my single hinge, walk and dodge, reverse wheel around. I want to get them out quickly. Great. Pass the ocean. There's my focus move. Boys run, ladies trade, wheel and deal. I've done it. I can call an Alaman left there and a right and left grand, square the sets, or I can just keep on going. It's entirely up to me and how the dancers are going. Okay, so I want to keep on going as an example, but I'm going to keep this group of 4 dancers together. I don't worry about what the rest of them are doing. Okay, tag the line, girls turn back. Touch a quarter, centers trade, boys cross run. I'm ready to get them back again. Okay, we'll do a recycle and a right and left through. They're back. I can call an Alaman left or whatever I want to get out of that corner box module. I've got a couple of chat comments here. Okay, we'll address the chat comment at the end there. Thank you for the comment though. Okay, so that's one couple sight. Basically, I'm watching one couple in a group of 4. I'm keeping that group of 4 in the same place on the same side of the square without moving them around anywhere. The next thing I want to look at is 2 couple sight. And the principle is exactly the same. This type of sight is often called isolated sight. And you'll hear a lot of callers referring to it as rubber banding. And what it is the caller moves the dancers to a key starting formation. So I'm going to keep with the corner box that I had the first time. So from a static square, head square through, it gets me into this formation. And there is my snapshot. Yellow couple on the outside of the square with those 4 dancers. Exactly the same. So I'm building on something I already know. Okay. The difference is I want to keep those 4 dancers connected in a group of 4. They do not have to stay in the same box. They just have to stay collectively assigned. Okay. So for instance, I'm going to use a combination here. Swing through, boys run. Well, they're still in the same group of 4 dancers. They're not in a box, but they're in a wave. Okay. Couples circulate. Oh, wait a minute. I'm moving this couple over to here. I'm moving this couple around there. They're not in the same box. They've moved in a different place in the square completely, but they still have that group of 4 connection. Bend the line. I've changed the facing aspect and everything else, but they still have that connection. From lines, a combination. Pass through, wheel and deal. I know by analyzing the right-hand couple is going to be in first, the left-hand couple is going to be in behind them, and they're still in that same combination. Pass through, wheel and deal takes me to here. They still have the box. Double pass through takes me from a starting double pass through to a completed double pass through. But they're interacting with the rest of the square, but they've never broken that formation. Leaders trade, I've got the yellow couple on the outside. Guess what? I can call an Alaman left from there. So when I want to resolve, I just maneuver anywhere I am, as long as those 4 dancers together, to put that yellow couple on the outside, and I can use a known modular get out. I can move the dancers around. Now I've got so much freedom, and it just shocks the heck out of the dancer. Wow, where did that? We've interacted with him. How does he keep us all straight? Well, the reality is all you've done is you've moved 2 couples, and you've just moved them around the square. Okay. So what we're going to do is just look very quickly before we get into the exercises, but we're going to set up 2 couples in a known phasor. We're going to use a corner box. We're going to keep those 2 couples associated in the group of 4. We're going to move them around. We're going to use combinations for flow to keep them together, because we know what our flow modules do, because we've talked about that. And we know what we need to do to keep them together. I want to use that flow module, the ladies' chain equivalent of right and left through, Dixie style to an ocean wave. Boys start swing through, and then following it with a chain down the line. Okay, so this is what I plan to do, but this is my 2 couple sight calling. So let's just, oops, sorry, cancel, reset. Okay, so okay, so when we start in the static square, let's just change these guys back to blue. Okay, so we start, we do a head square through 4. Great, there's our start. Okay, we're going to take our snapshot. There's our chosen 4. Couple number 4 on the outside, that's the footprint I want to remember, and 1 and 3 in the middle. So 4, 1, 3. I don't worry about these dancers, they're just filler. I only worry about these 4 over here. Okay, so we've chosen our 4 dancers, and there's the snapshot. Swing through and boys run. Oops. That's a combination of calls, but it still has these 4 dancers together. Couples circulate. These 4 dancers are still together with like a box or a band around them. Bend the line, they're still together. Pass through, they're still together. Wheel and deal, they're still together. Double pass through, they're still together. Leaders, partner trade, they're still together. I can call an Alaman left here. I've moved them around. They're facing different walls. It feels like they've interacted, but we want to try and keep them going. So let's do some combination interactives. Do side do to a wave, we're just setting that up. Okay, let's do a scoot back across the square. They're still together. That worked well. Centers trade. They're still together. Let's do another scoot back. They're still together. Centers trade. All I've done is swing through twice, but I've interacted with the whole square and I've kept them together. Okay, let's do a boys run and Ferris wheel. Centers pass through. Okay, they're still together. That's a combination that I know what the start was, what the end was. So I've still got them together. Touch a quarter, they're together. Circulate twice. Okay, I know that a circulate twice from ocean waves doesn't do anything. But what it does do, it interacts with the square and gets the feel that they're moving around and really cast off 3/4. Cast off 3/4. It looks like they're not together, but if you look at it, oh my goodness, they're still together. I've got these facing lines. I want to use that flow module. Okay, right and left through, Dixie style to an ocean wave, boys start, swing through, chain down the line. Now I know that this is my line that I had together, but I also know that that flow module is the same as doing ladies chain. So I want to put them back together. To put them back together, I put my ladies chain in there. And they are all back together. Pass through, bend the line, they're still together. Slide through, they're still together. I could resolve there. Swing through, girls circulate, boys trade, right and left grand. boom, 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 and the sets are squared. I haven't separated them at all. Now, where is my presentation gone? There you are. Okay. So the simplicity of starting with one couple, learning how to do it, then going into two couple extemporaneous or isolated sight, and learning how to do that is going to open up a whole world of calling. There are some fabulous, fantastic square dance callers out there that never progressed past that point. And there's some really big name callers out there that have never progressed past this point. The reality is you really don't have to, because if you know your modules, you know your sequences, you know your flow modules, all you're doing is dancing and letting the dancers win and have a good time. Those two forms of sight resolution are often overlooked, but they are the easiest forms to master. They still provide variety. You can move the dancers along the square grid, as you saw with that second part. You can add a few zeros and equivalents and modules in there, and you have a real mix of possibilities. So at any time where I get two couples together within those sequences, I can throw in a zero module and then just come back to where I was. I can add a few modules, and now I've got the ability to practice sight calling and modules together. Oh, wait a minute, modules together is part of sight calling. I can add a few different and exciting get-ins and get-outs to my known formation just to make it feel different. And the beauty of it is, because you're keeping those four dances together, if they do have a little bit of a problem, you're usually only 2, maybe 3 movements away from a very quick fix resolution, because it's not that difficult to resolve 4 dancers. You pair up one couple, they're already sorted. You will be in control of your dance so much better than with trying to just move the dancers around with no pattern, full extemporaneous sight with no understanding, and then trying to sight resolve the square. Okay? What this is going to do is build from what you already know about modules and movements and modules and mechanics, because they are an integral part of sight calling. And any caller that says they don't use modules is lying to you. Okay? So in summary, you can proceed with confidence because your dancers will gain confidence with success. You're going to feel nervous trying this, but it's very different kind of nervousness. It's, I'm not sure, but I'm ready to try this because I understand the techniques, and you've got lots of tools to practice with. Okay? Your dancers are going to be moving with a purpose, under control, and feel your confidence. Somebody's flashing a chip at me. Okay, we'll get to that. Okay, more importantly for you, you're going to feel like you're in control of your dance. These two simple forms of sight calling not just can, but they will enhance a new caller and a new dancer group by allowing the caller to use fewer calls without that customary setup to get them to facing lines, pass through, wheel and deal, and finishing it with either centers pass through or center square through 3. That's a sight resolution formula. It's a perfectly good formula and it works fantastic. But there comes a time when you go lines of 4, go up to the middle and back. Okay, he's getting ready to resolve. We're going to do pass through, wheel and deal, and the dancers will know it beforehand. Suddenly, if you're only working with 2 couples, it opens up a myriad of possibilities that are simple and easy to dance for the dancers, easy for you to control, but that resolution seems to come out of nowhere. It's not magic. It's just you knowing what you're doing with 2 couples. The beauty of simple sight calling like this with 1 or 2 couple methods is it can be used on the fly. You don't need a prior setup of primary and secondary couples. All you do to start this is you have a look at where they are on the square, and then you do it for that 2 couples one time or one little preparation. And then you go back. And then you can do it somewhere else. And then you go back. And then you can do it somewhere else. 2 simple sequences. All you got to do is simply watch the dancers and decide when you're going to start. You follow the relationships as you call, and you return them to the proper placement on the square grid. So if you start with the yellows on the outside, you're working 2 couples, you put the yellows on the outside. If those 2 couples are together, you don't have any resolution to think about. They're already resolved for you. You can take advantage of the 2 couple technique practically anywhere where you have facing couples on the grid. Okay. Now, I said before, there's no such thing as pure sight. I stand by that. Sight calling is a matter of watching the dancers while they're dancing and integrating known actions and reactions and incorporating the use of modules of various types and applying different techniques. It's a process of dancer manipulation with a technique of application of memorized patterns. Okay, they're hidden only by the caller's ability to recognize on the fly where the process starts and where the process stops and the technique he or she is going to use. Things like changes, equivalents, setups, those are all part of the techniques. If you don't want to call right and left through, pass through, wheel around, it does the same thing. That's an equivalent. All those other kinds of things. Oops, I just turned that to blue for some reason. I have no idea why. Okay. Incorporating all those little techniques, that's using techniques, that's using memory, that's using known modules. That's why there's no such thing as pure sight calling. If I was asked to define a sight caller or what good sight calling is, and I was, there was so many definitions that came out. And this one wasn't mine. This was actually one that Tim Mariner and Ken Rituzzi, sort of a combination of both of theirs. A sight caller is a caller that watches the dancers, manipulates their actions by applying individual movements, flow sequences, prepared and memorized modules and techniques with the practice ability to manage three crucial points of timing: lead time, command time, execution time, to give the dancers a comfortable and exciting dance which they can feel good about themselves. The reason I like that as a definition of a sight caller is because the only part that deals with sight is a caller that watches the dancers, manipulating their actions by applying individual movements, flow sequence, prepared and practiced modules and memorized modules. That's stuff you already know. That's stuff that's already in your memory. Techniques, that's already known and that's already in your memory. The ability to manage the points of timing, how long it takes, how long do you have to give them to prepare for a movement? Usually 2 beats ahead. How long does it take to say the name of the movement? Usually 2 beats, sometimes more. Square through is 2 beats. Spin, chain, and exchange the gears takes 4 beats. You know, and that's rushing it. So that's your command time. And the execution time, how long does it take the dancers to complete that call? Well, you know all that already. And you're putting all of the things that you already know to give the dancers a comfortable and exciting dance so that they feel good about themselves. That's what sight calling is taking what you already know and putting it together and watching what happens. The only difference is you're not going off a script. You're breaking away from that script for a little bit, and then you're coming back to your script. Well, that's the end of the presentation. I'll have a quick look in the chat and we'll, people waiting here. Let's have a look at the chat. I have nothing. Were there any questions in the chat there, Mark?
Nope, I have nothing.
Nothing? Okay, so I've got a number of things that were, I think people were sending messages to me privately. Yep, they were. Okay, Western US dancers will die with walk and dodge and reverse wheel around. A pass the ocean while half sashay. Part of being successful is understanding the dancer limitation and regional norms. Nice material, certainly that sequence can be built, which is a completely different skill. Yes, that is true. That was part of the discussion that we were having this morning. The ability to dance, for instance, walk and dodge and a reverse wheel around. That is standard position, mainstream level dancing. The fact that it is not used in a specific area, the fact that it is not done, that's a weakness and a limitation that callers are forcing upon their dancers and thus taking variety out of their ability to dance. Okay? I'm not saying, you know, do your part of a 3/8 walk and dodge with an inverted rotate, motivating half around and that number 3 dancer go to the left 14/17 of an inch. That's by definition, God knows what the hell that is. But doing a simple walk and dodge, that's a standard mainstream. Directed dancer looking in walks, other dancers dodge. Wheel around is a basic level movement. It has no standard other than as a couple, you wheel around. If it's not used, that's not a dancer problem, that's a caller problem. Another one, isolated sight is challenging and it requires a lot of homework to keep it fresh. In speaking about sight calling resolution, we seem to avoid the topic of sequence length. What are the benefits of shorter sequences? A fantastic question. I'm actually going to steal some material that Daryl Clendenin brought up in an exercise. If you have control of the dancers and your dancers are doing fine and working great, you can keep calling. But your calling should never be more than about 15 movements in length. It should even be shorter than that if you can, because you want the dancers to succeed. And if they go to a point where they succeed, that could be an Alaman left, that could be a swing, that could even be a do-si-do your corner, shake right hand, say thank you for being there where I needed. There's the acknowledgement that you've done the right thing, and go into the next sequence, because it gives the dancers the feeling that they succeeded. My general guidance is I don't like sequences to be any longer than a maximum of 15 movements. I try to keep them shorter, but depending on what you're doing and what you're focusing on, 15 movements is about the length. The beauty of isolated sight is you've got two couples. Once you pair up that one of those couples and put them back where you wanted them, you're resolved. From that point, if you're using a corner box or a partner line, you are resolved. So you can get there anywhere, and you can make that judgment sequence, that judgments to say, right, my sequence is going to be 5 movements, or my sequence is going to be 15 movements. The beauty of it is you get to have that control, and you can shorten it at any time so the dancers feel successful. I would add one thing on this. If you are using these techniques and focus modules and everything else, the last set of sequences that you use in your hoedown bracket, make sure they're simple and that the dancers win. That last sequence has to be a win for the dancers. Never end it with the dancers, I didn't quite get that, thank God it's over. That's the worst thing you can ever do. And last one, I started using this, I'm assuming you're talking isolated sight, 2 weeks ago for the first time, and it went over well with the dancers. I found it easier to call a hoedown. Who's that from? Oh, Raymond. Yeah, excellent comment. I found that with a lot of newer callers, what they do is they take a known module sequence or a singing call. So if my singing call is head, square through, swing through, spin the top, right and left through, square through 3, swing your corner, they'll go head, square through, and they'll do some isolated or some snapshot burnt image calling, a little bit of 2. They'll incorporate half a chicken plucker, take a snapshot, do the same thing on the other side. Do the other half chicken plucker, bring him back for an Alaman left. Do a square through, do an invert and rotate module, take a snapshot, because it's still a corner box, do a little bit of isolated sight, and then bring him back and get out. It works really, really well because you've got your sequence and you're just breaking your sequence up to fill that little bit of isolated sight or sight calling practice in something that you already know works. You succeed, the dancers succeed, but it feels like a whole different dance with the amount of variety. And that's all the questions and comments. So the floor is open. By all means. Oh, look at that. We're exactly on time. So any questions, comments, queries, points, especially from new callers? Have we got any of the newer callers that have been trying this or have tried this?
Yeah,
I got Raymond circled, so Raymond, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, yeah, when I use those, you know, the standard modules that you learn, and then I virtually just picked out a couple of modules and just added them in, like 0 modules, and it just seemed to work out really, really well, because you know the standard modules, the flow seems to go nicely. Yeah. And yeah, and
well, what is really, really nice is when you look at these kinds of things, Essentially what you're saying is you took a singing call, you put them in, let's just say a modular sequence, a little bit of isolated sight, but you understood the flow modules or the combinations, what they did, takes you back to your box, do a module. It could be one of your magic modules or whatever, or do a chicken plucker or half a chicken plucker, do a little bit of isolated sight, bringing back that footprint, do a flip-flop module or a resolution module. Did you feel like you had a lot more control of the dance?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you
Now,
tend to know where they are, you
Yeah.
know, and
now
just,
I'm going from my own feeling. When I started doing this and when I was taught to do this, I had a feeling very different from when I was calling my first modules the first time. I was looking at memorizing. When I started doing isolated sight with one couple and then eventually two couple sight, I memorized one module. Most of the flow modules I already knew, but I felt a little more nervous, but a little more confident because I was only dealing with two couples. Did you find that same kind of experience?
no, it just seemed, oh, well, because on the first night, like my second night on Wednesday night wasn't as good. My first night just seemed to flow really nicely, and I seemed to know where they were. I don't know. I think because I played around with it on the second week, it just didn't. I didn't seem to, know exactly, where they were that night.
What you described in the first week, you were dealing with a burnt image or one group of four staying in a spot, moving them around, having a module, one group of four staying in the spot. Did you try and do isolated sight and rubber banding, moving them around?
No, I didn't.
No, just asking.
No.
What is really good? You work with Alan a lot. What I would recommend is talk to Alan, and at the end of your program, if you get a chance to actually record yourself or talk about what you're doing, have a good constructive critique as to why this went so well. What did I change to make it different? And then you can start analyzing it. When you do that, look at what was really, really good. Focus on developing what was really, really good. Identify where you had problems. Set them aside to pick one little point to work on at a time. Don't try and fix everything. Focus on what's good, make it better, and pick one at a time to deal with. But I'm really glad you're trying it, Raymond. Well done.
Yeah.
Somebody else had a comment in there, or started a comment.
At Helen from Sweden, I just had an experience this summer. I did some calling outdoors as a demonstration, and I worked a little bit with the modules that we talked about earlier in the summer. And I think now when you're discussing this, I realized that I did some of this as well. As you know, I only call basic, and it wasn't even full basic because my dancers couldn't dance full basic. So I have a very few calls to work on. So there isn't too much variety, but I think exactly what you said. I kept them together, and so I knew where they were. And I must say, I felt exactly what I said. I felt more control than when I'm just calling them, keeping them moving. I'm definitely more control.
One of the biggest aspects is, again, I'm stealing a phrase. A module is a movement or a series of movements done for a specific purpose. When you look at it that way, you're actually achieving moving the dancers to do something that you know works. When you have limited choreography available to you, you're going to find that isolated sight or burnt image sight calling, one couple sight calling, adds a lot more flexibility to your calling than having a whole series of little prepared modules. You prepare your modules so that you know if I get into a corner box, I know I can use this and get me to an Alaman left. But you can use isolated sight or burnt image sight, the one couple sight, to give yourself a lot of flexibility and a lot of mobility for you and your dancers to give enhanced variety and excitement, because you're not limiting yourself to what is written on that piece of paper. You're not limiting yourself. You know what movements you have, you know what movements work together because you studied that. It opens up that world and it gives you that sense of control. Excellent comment, Helen. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I might have missed this, Mel, but did you talk about interacting with the other side while keeping your group together in any sort of way?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. When you do movements like a combination, I broke them down into two, like pass through, wheel, and deal. Well, there's an interaction. But the same thing if we look at a flow module, head square through 4, I've got my cornered box, I take my snapshot. If I do swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, centers pass through. There's a module that interacts with the square, gives you the wind in the face. You feel like you're dancing with the whole square, but the whole intent of that module is to move them, but I'm still keeping that rubber band around this, even though there's a little transfer in the middle. If I do the combination that I showed you there when I had the 2 ocean waves, scoot back, center straight, I'm interacting with the other side, but I'm not changing that grouping at all. It's just interacting and coming right back. It takes me out, takes me in, takes me out, takes me in. Individual movements will do that, and combination movements will do that. From ocean waves, all 8 circulate twice is one of the best examples of keeping a group together and interacting with the square, because you've got 2 different directions. You've got an inside and an outside moving in conflicting directions, and you see everybody going. But the reality is, all you've done is you've affected a right and left through, basically. But you've done it in such a way that everybody's moving weird and wonderful interactively, and you've done nothing except a right and left through and a right and left through.
Right. When I was learning to call, I remember the chicken plucker was being, used as a framework for hanging your patter upon.
Yep.
And I didn't really grok onto what that meant. But, if you are going to use the standard old chicken plucker routine with the right and left through, dive through, centers pass through, when you've completed that transition and you're on the other side, now's your opportunity to use a little bit of that burnt image sight calling over there.
Absolutely.
And then bring it back and do the same thing on the other side. And once you've done that once or twice, your sequence length is probably about right. And just get out. So can you kind of expand upon what I'm trying to mumble here a little bit?
Absolutely. When you use, okay, first I need to clarify, a chicken plucker is right and left through, the true chicken plucker, I should say, is right and left through, dive through, centers pass through, right and left through, dive through, centers pass through. That's a full chicken plucker. It does absolutely nothing except move back and forth across the grid. What you're talking about is a half chicken plucker. And when you start module calling, it's one of the techniques of filling in your module. So if I have the module swing through, spin the top, slide through, that's my module. It does nothing. I can do heads, square through 4, do a do, side, do. And I want to use that spin the top as my focus. Swing through, spin the top, slide through. I'm exactly where I was, but I want to interact. So I'm going to do a half a chicken plucker, right and left through, dive through, centers, pass through. I can do the same half of, I'm now with 2 different people. I can do the module, swing through, spin the top, slide through, and then finish my chicken plucker, right and left through, dive through, centers, pass through, and I'm right there. The same principle works with isolated sight. Square through 4, I'm in my corner box. I do some isolated sight, I bring them back to that same footprint. I do half a chicken plucker. I take them onto the other side of the square. I take another snapshot. I now look at 4 dancers, but I got a different couple on the outside, for example. Instead of number 4, I've got number 2 couple on the outside. I do some isolated sight with those 4 dancers, and I bring them back to that exact same footprint. I know now that I can do my other half of the chicken plucker and bring them back to that Allemande left or that original corner box. And that's what you're saying. A chicken plucker is a good way to break it up and interact with the other side of the square. Do what you have to do. And when you mix a half chicken plucker with isolated sight, you open up a whole world of I'm dancing with other people and then coming back, and it feels so different. And if you have prepared get-outs, if you've got a prepared get-out from a right-hand lady box, such as a half chicken plucker box, if you will, it's great because you can do your isolated sight out here, go on the other side, do some isolated sight and resolve from there. Or you can bring them back and resolve from the corner box. It opens up your material, what's available to you exponentially. Like I said, 5 modules and 1 singing call figure is, what was it, 196 separate 3 module combinations that you can make without repeating. Now, if you add isolated sight and half a chicken plucker, there's no way to do the math. It cannot be done because the variety is absolutely infinite. It's limited only by your imagination and your dancer's ability. So it opens up a whole world for you. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
I'm was trying to put the PowerPoint presentation into the chat, but for some reason it doesn't seem to want to do that.
Maybe you're offline again.
I hope not.
I might suggest something. 2 couples sight. If you cannot resolve 2 couples, you can't resolve 4 couples.
Absolutely.
And a very excellent, very good way to learn 2 couples sight is when you're teaching your new dancers, make use of the Sicilian circle.
Yeah. Because
you can pick your couples, dance anything you want. And if you can get normal facing couples, you're always going to be within 3 movements of where you want to be. 1, 2, or 3. Trust me on that. If you can get normal facing couples, the most you can be away from where you want to be is going to be 3 movements. Those 3 movements is going to be right and left through, star through, and 2 ladies chain, or equivalents thereof. But if you can do that and follow your couples around the Sicilian circle, you can call anything you want to with the next couplet to come to, as long as you now know how to get them back to normal facing couples.
Mm-hmm.
Good practice without having the confusion of the other 2 couples on the other end. It just looks totally isolated, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that is the exact purpose and the exact point that is being made with doing this kind of a technique. What you're doing is you're actually just doing 2 couple dancing. I prefer, whenever I was calling for my club, I would always start the evening in the Sicilian circle, not just to make, because there's always a couple coming in late or a few couples coming in and trickling in, the first 5 minutes of the dance when they should have been there 15 minutes ago. But that way everybody's on the floor. It's a good chance to review. It's a good chance to flow. And what Daryl is saying, if I go here, let's just do this. My ugly mug. Why does terminations keep? I think you might be right. I think I might be offline again. Are you able to see my screen still?
Yeah.
Okay. So what Daryl is saying is, if I call head square through, or if I'm in a Sicilian circle and I say, right, pass through, move to the next, my calls are like that. And from here, if I wanted to focus on, let's just say we're going to use the movement, I don't know, walk and dodge as an example. So I go touch 1/4, walk and dodge. I have no idea what I'm going to do here. Let's do a partner trade just because we can. Reverse flutter wheel, slide through, pass through. Half sachet, 1 and, oh, sorry, 1 1/2. I'm just making stuff up right now. I'm just doing extemporaneous sight. Boys turn back. Boys turn back. Okay, and touch 1/4. I'm just making stuff up. I have no idea who's where, who's, I'm watching the dancers just to make sure it flows. And what Daryl is saying is, from here, you're never too far away from resolving the square. If I wanted to resolve this 2 couples, I want the number 1 couple standing at the bottom of the screen, facing the top of the screen. How many movements?
What I would say, Mel, is first thing you want to do is get normal facing couples.
Yeah, I was just coming to that, but please go ahead. Just walk us through your process, Daryl.
Okay, well, boys run.
Okay, I've normalized the couples.
Wheel and deal.
Are you going to do a sweep a quarter after that?
Yes.
Okay, because I got to type it in as one command, that's all.
But the thing of it is, the wheel and deal is going to get, now in my head it said to sweep a quarter. You might not have done that. Let's sweep a quarter more. We are zeroed there, and you would do a pass through and move on to the next 2. Can you do a sweep a quarter more?
I can't do a sweep a quarter by itself, and I can't do it as a standalone movement. Combinations doesn't have that.
Just 2 boys walk.
If I do that and I go boys run, and like as Daryl was saying, your movements are, if I do bend the line.
Just do the wheel and deal. Just do the wheel and deal.
Okay. Okay.
I said that within those 3 movements, you can get what you want. Actually, it's only going to be 2 movements from here. What were those 3 movements? Was it 2 ladies, a star through, and a right and left through?
Yep.
Now, obviously, it's going to have the 2 ladies chain. And this is pretty simple to see. If you know that you've got your people in normal things, and then the star through, and you're right back there. 3 movements are going to save you if you can get normal facing couples. So you can call anything you want, as long as you know how to get back to facing couples.
And the system prevents the new caller or the unexperienced caller from one thing. He probably won't get awkward arrangements unless he's calling something awkward.
Yep. That absolutely true. Like I said, I use that only as an example. I would never expect a new caller working with 2 couples in isolated sight to call, a walk and dodge part or half sachet 1 1/2 or reverse half sachet 1 1/2. I would never expect that. All I was doing an odd setup just to show what Daryl was talking about.
Yep.
When you're only working with 2 couples, it's very, very quick to resolve. And
you will not have a boy, girl arrangement.
Nope.
Usually not.
Unless you do something asymmetric, you're not going to. Okay, so now what I'm doing exactly what Daryl had exactly on the last one, and we're exact same choreography, but let's have a look at it and see what happens. So instead of working with 1 group or 1 couple or 2 couples, okay, I do my square through. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but here's my snapshot. I've got number 4 couple on the outside. I want to bring this group of 4 together. I want to keep them there. I'm not sure how this is going to run with the wheel and deal, but we'll see what happens. Okay, but essentially, touch a quarter, walk and dodge. Partner trade, reverse flutter wheel. Slide through. Pass through. Okay, everybody do a half. Now that would be very awkward in the square. Boys turn back. Touch a quarter. Boys run. Wheel and deal. Ladies chain. star through, and there's my Alaman left. I was only looking at these two couples. I anticipate that this side of the square is going to do exactly the same thing. But because I was only working with those couples, as Daryl said, no matter where you are, once you normalize, you're a maximum of 3 movements away. And anytime, oh, partner trade, there's a normal. Reverse flutter wheel, there's a normal. Slide through, there's a normal. Pass through, there's a normal. At any point in there, you are normal couples. Boys run, you're normal. Look at that, 3 movements. You're any point at this, you're only 3 movements away with a right and left through, a star through, and a ladies chain. That is the beauty and the strength of isolated sight or 2 couple calling. Go ahead, Daryl.
Guido, I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said. That you're not going to get the boy, boy, girl, girl.
Yeah,
Is that
usually, if you don't call anything awkward, you don't have any 1, 2, 3, and 4 arrangements. You only have 0 arrangement and half arrangement.
Of course, I was talking Sicilian circle. You do understand there's a difference there.
Yeah.
If you have what? Okay, but for everybody else, in a Sicilian circle, you have an inside circle and outside circle of facing couples. If you said, move on to the next 2 and do a star through, at that point, you have an inside circle and outside circle. And if you have that, you can say inside's arch, outside's dive through. At that point, you can have those leaders do a U-turn back. You've got your boy, boy, girl, girl situation.
But that is what I was calling, unless you call something awkward.
Yeah.
I don't think that's awkward, though.
No, what Daryl is saying is normally you would have something like leaders U-turn back, but you would work that isolated sight. Even if you got a boy, boy, girl, girl combination, when you did that, you would call something like swing through, center trade, boys run from here, wheel and deal, and the trailers do a U-turn back, everybody part and trade, or the leaders do a U-turn back and everybody, or the leaders trade to get them back to that normal couple. You would still be working only with the 4 couples or the 2 couples. But the reality is you're never far away from a resolution. And you can do that same kind of boy, girl, girl, boy, or boy, boy, girl, girl combination in a square as well, using tag the lines, and you can set them up the same kind of thing.
The trick is knowing how to get those normal facing couples.
Yep.
So then for the newer caller, that's where those combinations come in, the modules. That's where they come in right there. Knowing the starting, ending formations. Now you don't have to know the whole phaser or phaser or whatever you're calling it there. But you do have to know the beginning and ending formation and what to do with that.
Okay, so there's an example of boy, girl, girl, boy, which is generally as far away as you would get. When you do something like bend the line or what have you from here, let's just do that. Bend the line. Okay, you've got 1 couple half sashayed, 1 couple not. That's the same as or sorry, you got everybody half sashayed, I should say.
Everybody's half sashayed. But that's why I said, unless you direct somebody to do something, you will always have 0 and half arrangements. I know you can achieve any other, but for the caller who's starting to learn, this is an easy method of not getting into an awkward position at first. You still can say, okay, now let's try and do this and give some additional tasks. Say, now let's make it asymmetric in this foursome.
Yeah,
but in general.
But yeah, well, I understand what you're saying, Guido. But what I'm saying is, see what I've got here. I'm still working that same thing, even if I don't call asymmetric. If I go back to facing couples and I call something like swing through, boys run, tag the line, face.
you have to face the caller or
And,
face
and,
the other
and
half?
this is what Daryl's saying. This is where you would get that. You would say something like face me or face the center.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to get that. And that's what we call, it's pseudo asymmetric. We're not really changing it. That's no different than saying tag the line in a square, face out or face in. That's where you get those combinations of boy, boy, girl, girl. They're also very, very easy to deal with in a square. So if I say, I can't do couple number one. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. But if I say something like face in, face out, or couple, or everybody face the center, forward and back, wheel and deal, leaders trade, I now have a boy, boy, girl, girl, swing through, boys run. That changes it, bang, and everybody can, you know, go forward and back and wheel and deal or whatever you want to fix that without losing your body flow and choreography. That works really, really well in a Sicilian circle. It works even better in a square if you're doing isolated sight with just moving two couples, because your interaction is with the rest of the square, but you're really ignoring the rest of the square other than a point of reference or a safety net so that you can do these additional calls. You're still keeping two couples together to play with.
I hope is my, yeah, it's okay. I hope I've got it right, Guido. You're absolutely right. Especially with the newer callers, they're not going to run into that problem unless they do something really weird. As long as they're sticking with normal choreography, this is going to be a useful tool. Basically, is all it is.
Yeah, and this is what I meant. The Sicilian circle, or this two couple side, one couple side thing.
So the essence of what I was really getting across is, for new callers, if you are going to start sight calling, and everybody will eventually, regardless of whether or not you started with mental image, if you started with banding, if you started with gate post calling methods, if you started with crams or any of these other dancer manipulation systems, everything that you have learned up to that point is choreographic management with a purpose. It's a series of techniques and modules that you put together that you have a lot of work to do, and they're all phenomenally fantastic, good methods of calling. Every one of those will help you as a sight caller. Don Beck summed it up best with his mental image process. He said, he's worked on this. He's taken what Jay King has done. He's developed it further. He's expanded it. And he says he hardly uses it as mental imaging. He uses it to keep track, but it has helped him as a sight caller, because he does mainly sight calling now, by incorporating all of those techniques and everything together. And that's what it does. And even the masters, they started two couples, then isolated, and then they've got into more extemporaneous stuff where they have dancer control because they're adding techniques to their methodology. That's how it works. Build your foundations, learn your definitions, your movement mechanics, your formation mechanics, your flow mechanics, and build on what you know. And this becomes a very, very simple process for you. And it's not that frustrating. I think Raymond's comment there was probably the most profound one. I tried this for the first time the other night, and it went really, really well. I tried to expand it a little bit, and it had a little bit of problems, but it still went well. Well, Raymond, all I can say is you called it the first night, and it went really, really well because you knew what you were doing. You tried to call it the second night and expand on it. You're really pushing yourself if you want to start expanding the techniques in one dance. I give you full credit for trying it, but it takes a long time to master a technique and then build a little bit more onto it. And well done to you.
Yeah, that's what
Michael, you started saying something?
Mel, could I just chime in a moment?
Yeah, just I think, was that Mike? Hey,
yeah, I was just the flip side of this. When I started right in with extemporaneous sight calling and didn't bother with burnt image or isolated sight, and it was a mistake.
Thank you.
In the days when we had a lot of dancers, there was a lot of work, and so I had a lot of leeway that I could make mistakes and still survive, but I wouldn't recommend it now.
Excellent comment.
Yeah, it really was.
Raymond, you had a comment, and then Alan.
Oh, thank you. Is Raymond going to speak
Yeah.
first, or go, Raymond?
Yeah. Hi, Alan.
Hi, mate.
Virtually, yeah. All I was going to do was for next week is try and go back to what I was just doing on the first week and just see whether everything works out, the way I did on the first week.
Absolutely. The hardest thing to learn as a caller is patience. I did that. Actually, Alan, you and Barry were down at the workshop I was doing in Wollongong. Do you remember when I was teaching that very, very basic site resolution method and I made you go back to the basics? It was the hardest thing for an experienced caller to say, I have to use that technique and only that technique, and force myself to go back and only use that, because there's so much going on in your mind because of experience and that wealth of experience. The flip side of that is, as a new caller, when you learn that first resolution technique, you want to learn more, you want to learn more, you want to learn more. It's very hard to force yourself to use it and use it and use it and use it until it's yours, because once you use it the first time, you see 100 things that you never saw before and you want to jump at all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Just force yourself not to do that. Master one at a time, and you'll find that this process will work very effectively for your own caller development. Go ahead, Alan.
I'm just bringing us back to a little bit of reality of what the situation is at the moment with the numbers that people achieve. You're probably never going to be in a situation where you're going to be able to have a class that you've got enough to put in a Sicilian circle. That's the first thing. So you got to have to work out, can I still do maybe a similar style of thing without having a circle? And so you might try and use contra lines or facing lines and do your two couple that way. That the other comment I wanted to make is understanding the chicken pucker or the basic framework. That comes from understanding the calls as well. When you do your interaction module that you use so often, Mel, with Ferris wheel, probably you don't note that, oh, I've actually put one couple over on the other side of the square already.
Yep.
He's actually on the way back from a chicken plucker, half chicken plucker coming back. He's coming back across the square. And understanding, well, if I put a circulate in my module, then I've taken the other couple across the square as well. So I've actually switched both couples over the other side, so I can just keep them over there and put them back together again. Yep. And so, yeah, understanding your calls to that extent where you can think beyond what the call is just doing, but where is it putting people? Can I use that in some way? Is what you gain from working on them at the understanding level of the call. Yeah.
Absolutely correct, Alan. I wasn't going to go into that depth, but essentially what he's saying is, if you remember where I said circulate twice does nothing and a full chicken plucker does nothing, a half chicken plucker moves them over. If I do a single circulate, I've essentially done a half chicken plucker. And then if I do the half chicken plucker, I've essentially just flipped the square around, a different way of getting there. And that's an excellent point. I just didn't want to get into that depth for new callers, but you're absolutely right. Yes, Daryl.
Alan said not going to get enough dancers to have a Sicilian circle. If you have 5 couples, you've got enough for a Sicilian circle.
Yep. You've got 3 actually.
3. With 3, I don't generally use the circle but I do call, to 3 couples, 2 heads on one side or vice versa, or to 2 couples for that matter. If you can get 2 couples and you want to learn and practice and everything, you can do practically everything that you're going to wind up calling at mainstream level. With those, you can Alaman left, you can right and left grand, you can promenade, you can touch a quarter, you can walk and dodge, you can pass the ocean, you can recycle, you can veer left, you can tag the line, you can do a half tag the line, you can do a box circulate, you can do a single hinge, girls.
The list goes on.
Blah, 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 on and on and on and on. full 85% at least. I mean, there's so few things that require 4 couples, 8 chain through. Yeah, if you're going to do an all 8 circulate, you're going to need 8 dancers. 8 chain through, spin chain through, trade by,
and a column circulate.
Oh, well.
Yeah, box
And-
circulate.
I think we did the count a while back, and I think on the mainstream program, out of 86 movement or 68 movements, there's 14 that you actually, and that includes the big circle and the DARs.
You can do an Alaman Dar with 2 couples.
Yeah, I know. I'm just looking
Yeah,
at relative.
the thing that is, if you do it with 2 couples, you can almost any of it you can do in Sicilian circle or with just the 2 couples.
Yeah.
It's a great way. And now if you're going to start a new club, maybe you can get 2 couples come out and say, hey, I need to learn how to call. I'll do this for free. You can start teaching them, and you can take them out to somebody's dance. Say, hey, let's go out and watch for a while. See, now that's how it works with 4 couples. It's
I'd like to add one thing onto that, though, Daryl. Alan, you said with the advent that's going on, and I hope and I wish everybody that's on Zoom and everybody that's not on Zoom has this same problem without what happened to it. But on 4 of these different sessions, and then earlier actually in this session, so that's 3, there was clubs that have been starting up that have been getting new dancers, and they have been vilified by other dancers and other clubs in other areas by saying, oh, you shouldn't be dancing yet. It's COVID. You're going to kill all your dancers. And it was so negative. In some cases, administrators and Facebook actually took them down, the chats down, and took the things off because it was actually getting aggressively angry. One of the club started up and they started a new group. They had 39 dancers. Another one had 28 dancers. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think that may have been the same one that we were talking about in Dan Likes group this morning. And what happened was the groups and the chats that they were in got so angry about them starting up and we can't dance. And, oh, what about COVID? You're going to kill these. Oh, you've got seniors. And they had young people and old people that it got to the point where they just took it down and stopped doing it. I hope that that kind of animosity and that vilification disappears. But right now, as I was saying, we have a distinct opportunity here with COVID. Everybody has been locked down. Most people are looking for something that they can do, and they have become very community and very social oriented, that they want something to latch onto without having to go back to the old disassociated fun of, single bars and one night stands, etc. No pun intended. But they want community things that they can take their family, that they've got control, that they want to do that. Now is the time to start marketing. Those people that have jumped on the bandwagon early are getting 30 and 40 and 29 people showing up at their open dances for a one night fun night recruiting dance. That's what's happening. And that's not an anomaly. People right now are searching, capitalize on the market, take advantage of it, because the only thing stopping you is you. Yeah, I understand the mechanics, the logistics, and the cost of a hall and all that. But quite frankly, if you want it to happen, it'll happen. You have to make it happen. Things landing in your laps like they did with me when I started. I was blessed. I started learning to call. Our caller was an American soldier. He was posted back stateside. I was a Canadian soldier, and I inherited a club of really, really good dancers in Europe that were willing to help me learn how to call. That's not going to happen much anymore. But opportunities are still there. Have we got any comments from some of the new callers, or did anybody want to try and do some of this? Yes.
I had a comment in regards to the Sicilian circles. It wasn't the number of dancers that was my challenge in our hall. We have 2 columns in the middle of the room that make Sicilian circles near impossible, unless I have like more than 5 squares. I had 5 squares, but it wouldn't work because of the columns. And so we did more like contra lines, but instead of having them just be facing each other, we had them face the walls east and west, and they moved up and down the line like a Sicilian circle. And then the couples on the end just had to do a partner trade, you know, kind of thing. And it worked
are the
really well
columns
for
in the
me as
hall?
huh?
Where are the, like, are they able to dance around the entire column?
Well, so the columns, there's 2 of them in the middle of the room, and it's great for round dancing because rounds go all the way around, but 1 square can fit in between 2 columns, and the dance floor is narrow the opposite way.
Now, what I was thinking with the Sicilian circle, let's just, as an example, let's say you get 15 couples round dancing, they're going around the columns.
Yes.
Well, you can do the Sicilian circle around the columns and just tell your dancers that right at the beginning. I know you start it, but you just get them started in facing couples instead of doing the big circle and alternate. And you just dance around. And that way, all you've got to do is say, when you do a pass through, move to the next, it's going to be a long move.
We tried that. I tried that on multiple occasions, but it was just too much body awareness control for new dancers. They aren't round dancers, you know. They didn't understand how far it was to go, and they'd start just closing in and run into the poles. Like if anybody had to back up, they'd back up into a pole. So, but the advantage of having the two lines right in front of me as a new caller, because I was teaching lessons and wasn't actually going to call, is I could see everybody do the same thing at once, kind of like a drill routine. So I knew who needed help right away. Where in the circle, even when we had enough to go around 1 column, in the circle, it made it harder for me to see who was struggling. And so it helped me be able to help the dancers learn quicker.
Yeah.
Having them go straight across the floor in front of me.
Yeah, and that's part of the motion mechanics. Simple things. If you're doing it, pass through, move to the next, pass through, move to the next, do your drills every second couple, you're going to be able to see that and put them in the visual acuity. You will miss what's going behind a column. Working in a line like a contra line, or it's essentially the same fundamental principle as progressive squares or a progressive line, where you have, if you at the end of the line facing out, just do a partner trade automatically and get ready to start when somebody comes to you. It's the same principle as having an odd number of couples in the Sicilian circle. Pick a direction and wait till somebody comes to you. That's why I was saying you can do the same thing with 3 couples if that's all you get. Just the odd couple, if you're facing away, just do a partner trade and you do exactly the same kind of thing. Excellent adaptation, you know. And that's what callers need to do. Is if that doesn't work to you, probably, I would venture to say, probably because you have a lot of experienced dancers that are used to orienting on the center of the hall with the caller, and they don't want to venture too far away from it, whereas round dancers are taught to go in a big circle. That's probably why the dancers are having the spatial anomalies, because it's being passed on. But excellent adaptation. You've adapted it to your own needs.
Yes and no, because I had squares that were 6 new dancers and only two angels in this particular class that I'm referring to. Unfortunately, we haven't been dancing since March, and we're not allowed to dance. Yeah. Our governor's talking about canceling Thanksgiving. So, yeah.
Well, in some cases here in Australia, we've got our 2021 convention is canceled, and I think they may be talking. They're looking at starting the planning for the 2022 convention, the national convention. So we've already canceled the 2021 convention. That's August in 21. So that's just the reality of what's going. We will find. Eric Tangman just put into the chat. Another alternative, and I've done this as well, is mini squares. I do this a lot of the time if I do get couples that are awkward, let's just say, for lack of a better terminology, when they're dancing with their partner, because husband and wife both want absolute control over what the other is supposed to do, and they're each telling each other they're wrong. It's very easy to do a square through, corner progression, swing, and promenade everywhere, find a new couple and circle up 4. And that I call them exploding squares. Some people call them progressive mini squares. What works for you is the right thing to do if it works for your dancers. It's like I've always said, the best resolution technique is the one that works for you. what Cece said about adapting to the physical constraints of her hall, what Eric said about dancing with the physical constraints of people. If that works, use it. Pass on that information because it may not work for you, but it might work for somebody else. So pass it on. Excellent comment. Anyone else have any comments, or did anyone want to look at isolated site, 2 couple or 1 couple? I'm looking specifically at the new callers here. This whole class was by suggestion. I'm getting lots of personal chat, but please feel free to share it in the room. Because trust me, you're not alone. Every caller has had to go through what you're going through. No. Well, it is 10:50. It's been a long day. My day actually started at 7 a.m. on Friday morning. It's now 10:50 on Sunday morning. So it's been a very long day for me. And I can hear that my wife and the chainsaw and the tree has come down in the backyard. So that's why I don't have any background noise coming across. So I better go and make her a coffee or something. If nobody has anything that they want to chat about or anything they want to try, I'd love to say thank you very much. As always, I want to express my thanks to Mark Hart for recording and doing the sessions. I don't know what's going on, so I may be actually offline and just on a Zoom tunnel. I cannot post the PowerPoint or the presentation into the windows, into the chat room. But if you do want to get an email copy of it, by all means, send me an email. I will be sending them to Mark, and I will be posting them on the Facebook page for download as well. So you can download them there on the Newbie Callers website when the presentation is up.
Thank you, Mel. That was lovely. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Mel.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. You're very quiet today, Yolanda.
Excellent presentation, Mel. Very nice.
Oh, thanks, Daryl. Appreciate it.
Well done. Well done.
You may have noticed I stole a lot of your points from a few previous presentations to incorporate.
I was just feeling guilty. I got the time mixed up again. So I was shoveling snow before coming inside to warm up and listen to the presentation and realized it was done and over with.
No worries. Well, like I said, it'll be online, and if you do have questions on it, feel free to send me an email. You've got my email address.
Yeah, the carburetor went on the snow blower, so all of a sudden I've got extra work to do until it's fixed.
Well, it's the same principle as using a computer program or Colorama for writing your choreography. It always works better when you do it yourself. The shovel doesn't break down.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot more work to get it done.
Just the person.
It just takes more time. So if I know that I do most of the shoveling myself anyway, somebody just comes and blows it into the right areas normally for me afterwards.
Yeah.
But if I don't have that person available, then I have to move my snow in other areas in order.
My recollection of Prince George and Fort St. John is whenever I had to shovel the lanes and the walks and the driveways, and we're talking about 4 or 5 feet, so 1.5 meters or 1.25 meters of snow falling in one evening. You get out and shovel it. I have no idea, but I'm absolutely certain that Canadian snowplows have a sensor in them that adapts to the entire region, that as soon as you finish clearing your driveway, they're going to come by with the snowplow and block you in.
Absolutely. And then block me in. They did that twice this week. It's like, are you kidding? And I've got 2 driveways, right? Because I'm going to have to do my mom's. And then I have to do the whole perimeter of my backyard so that the dog doesn't get out. So it's the equivalent of 4 driveways. So I am getting my exercise.
Oh, that's good.
The problem is I don't get enough time to work on this. If I don't, that's the problem. And I'm supposed to do another tip on Monday. So if anybody, if I can cheat, does anybody have anywhere that you can find 2 couple sections for really, really basic people. This is a group that just started back from March and has only been doing it for 2 weeks or something, and they want me to do a guest tip on
Have you
what
got a
that is.
list of movements?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to show you something here, and it's the easiest way of doing it. Can you see my screen?
Okay.
Okay. So you can do, do they do a square through?
Yes, they did a square through.
Okay, so you can do a square through. Do they do wheel around or a partner trade?
They're sort of. They don't have the spatial awareness yet because they're,
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
We're talking two couples. Do they do a partner trade?
yes.
Okay, so do they do a star through?
Yes.
I'm assuming they do a do-si-do. Do they do a right and left through?
Yes.
Do they do a ladies chain?
They're getting there. They're half and half. From
Do
the
they
look
do
of
a
it.
courtesy turn?
Yes.
Okay. Do they do a star through?
Yes.
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 We said that already, haven't we? Do they do a flutter wheel?
Sorta. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do a
I
pass.
said they're really basic.
Do they do a U-turn back?
Yes.
Can they do a run?
Yes.
Haven't got there yet. So they know how to do a swing through?
Sorta.
Okay, so let's do
You
that.
don't need swing through to do a run, Mel.
I know. Okay, computer's not, it'll do it in a square, but it won't do that. But I can do a circle left halfway. But I've just made a list of just some calls. Can you see on the screen there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, these are your two couple dancers. Okay, that's a lot of right hand flow, but okay, do-si-do. You know, if they can do a pass through and courtesy turn, they can do a right and left grand. You can easily get them to do a ladies chain. You know, girls reach in, right pull by, boys reach in, courtesy turn, end up facing the couple. If you want to make some two couple movement, now see that list there? That's about as long as you want any of your lists to be. But if you have a limitation on your movements, that two couple burnt image or that two couple isolated site is ideal for you. You have a singing call module. Let's say your singing call module is the head square through, do a do-si-do, do the right and left through, veer left, Ferris wheel, centers pass through. If that's it, if those are all you got, you've got material that you can do two couples heads, back out your home, two couples sides, back out your home, head square through, two couples to an Alaman left, side square through, two couples back to that burnt image, half a chicken plucker, two couples back, half a chicken plucker, Alaman left, right and left grand. You've got more than enough material to fill in 3 weeks just with a simple chicken plucker, a swing through a boy's run. And if you've got a trade and a ladies chain, you've got at least a full, 10 tips of material without repeating yourself. But the only way you're going to do it is to get your checkers out or get Taminations or whatever program you use and limit yourself, put your list of movements and start. Don't try and write routines and write them down and memorize sequences. Start using this application of using your material and recognizing who's where, when to bring them back. And as Daryl said, at any point where I had a standard normal couple, I am a ladies chain, a star through, and a right and left through, 1, 2, or 3 of those movements away from bringing them back. And if you look at this sequence that's here, square through, normal couples, partner trade, normal couples, star through, normal couples, do side do, right and left through, normal couples, pass through, normal couples, courtesy turn, normal couples, star through, normal couples, pass through. Oh, wait a minute. U-turn back, pass through. I'm not normal facing couples. U-turn back. I'm not normal facing couples. Star through. I am normal facing couples. There's 2 movements in there that I am not less than 3 movements away from a resolution with star through, right and left through, and ladies chain. And if they can do a right pull by and a courtesy turn, they can do a ladies chain. You just have to put that combination together for them. And their spatial awareness is not really going to affect this that much. Now, you said
Yolanda?
they do a swing through, they do a boys run, they've got all that material in there. Isolate your material, figure out what you can do and what the dancer can do comfortably, but you've got to force yourself. Don't write out some long sequence and get up there and read it.
Yolanda?
Go ahead, Daryl. Sorry.
Understand that you're not going to use all 3 of those movements every time, right? Those 3 movements, you're going to have to pick 1 or 2 or all 3 of them when it's whatever's necessary. Those 3 movements will do it, but not necessarily all 3 of them every time. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
I've just got the deer in the headlight feeling, you know. It's a, instead of, I've got more chances at the moment to get behind the mic than I normally would. But one is a very small group that's it 4 couple. One is a larger group that's more advanced, and I basically do modules, and the person in charge checks what I'm doing before I go behind the mic. And then this is basically a large family that are square dancers that haven't been behind on the floor since March. So
what you're doing, there's no problem with what you're doing. When you look at what you have, if your group that you do the modules with, they're a more advanced group, they're better dancers. As long as you keep your processes simple, if he's running the modules and he's checking the modules that you can do and what you're going to call, that's a perfect place to try and do some of this burnt image or isolated sight, because here's my module, head square through, there's my corner box module, swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, centers pass through. There's my corner box module as an example. He's okayed that. Well, you can do that corner box, you can do a little bit of isolated sight, get them back to that corner box, and then call swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, centers pass through. You can start incorporating these techniques, little short branches out, to build your confidence and have the dancers build their confidence in you.
I'm just running out of time. That's all.
Yeah, no,
I'm also in Don Beck's class, and I have to do the homework for that.
Absolutely. But the only way to do it is for you to make that decision for yourself. Don't, if you're not comfortable doing that, don't let anybody force you to jump in. You're quite comfortable and capable with your modular selection. You're quite comfortable and capable stringing a series of modules together. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. That is a perfect calling technique that works for you. And if you're happy with it and the dancers are happy with it, it works. So start small. You may just start one little isolated sight routine, one little isolated. When you're ready, you'll start, you'll branch, you'll learn. Don't feel you have to try this right away. Don't feel you have to try isolated sight. You might just work on burnt image sight. When you're ready, you'll do it. You've got an opportunity, but your opportunity starts with either your checkers or your program, putting your limitations and just seeing what you can do. Don't try and write a module, just see what you can do. Mix them up, bring them back, mix them up, bring them back. Do that in your comfort of your home to build your own confidence before you take it out to the dance floor. And when you're ready, you'll know you're ready.
I'm usually okay by the time I have to do it. It's just, I just feel like I'm juggling right now.
Yeah. We all are. I'm worried about these sessions because I'm still waiting for a neurosurgeon to say I'm going into the hospital to get my spine and my knee operated on simultaneously. So I could be out of commission for 6 months. Last week, I was so blessed to have Betsy Gotta call me, and she said, well, she had that presentation that she gave last week. I said, great, you want to do it this week? Because I was waiting for an answer. This is one that I was working on. I had nothing planned. So when Betsy had that one ready, I now had 2 weeks of material for the next 2 sessions. I've got nothing planned for next week. So I'm going through what we have here and some of the questions. And most of these sessions are planned by questions, but I cannot plan ahead because I have no idea what's going on with me and the neurosurgeon and what's going to happen after that. So that's why I'm always fishing. That's why I said, Daryl, is your presentation ready? Mike, is your presentation ready? Alan, is your presentation ready? I do that all the time. And yes, it's tongue in cheek and I get a laugh, but
Well,
if
at the
you
moment,
say yes, I'll keep you to it.
well, at the moment, it seems to be working out because they phone and it's like, okay, this person I'm substituting for different people and stuff. So it's so far, I've only had 1 week where I had to do 3 at a time. but one of these days I am going to go poof, right? And I'm trying to find a system of having things organized ahead of time, just in case, and trying to modify 4 couple to 2 couple.
You're a lady caller and you have a distinct advantage over male callers because women, I was told fundamentally, women are allowed to change their mind at any time and men are not allowed to criticize.
No, the thing is, once I make a commitment, I stick to it. So that's not enough.
Are you waving or are you saying goodbye, Daryl?
I'm saying thanks for everything, Mel. We'll catch you another time. I might be hitting you up during the week sometime with questions about that PowerPoint, though.
No problem.
All right.
All the
See
best
you
to the
later.
missus.
Take care, everybody.
Say hi to the wife. Take care. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to add or any questions they have? If not, it's just after 11 and I'm going to go and see my wife if she's still speaking to me.
Mel?
Yes.
Question, what time in Australian time does the one that started this morning, what's your time? That is?
3 a.m. Sydney time.
Yeah, well, that's with the meeting when I got on was already going this morning. So
no, it wasn't actually going. Dan is like me. He usually opens the room up half an hour to an hour early.
Oh.
And it's just discussions. Like this room actually opened up at 8 o'clock and we were having a lot of discussion prior to, but the presentation didn't start until 9. A lot of us do that because in some cases it's easier for some callers to get online. They may have questions, they want to look at something, but they have to go at 10 o'clock. Like this weekend in the States, the Rivco Festival is on as a virtual festival. There, Bonnie Abrams has got a couple of sessions about dancing and dancer perspectives and various things on that a number of callers are logging into, and that starts at 11 o'clock Eastern time in the US. So for some, it's easier to actually get online and ask things, and they may only be able to stay until 10 o'clock or 10:15 my time, but then they have to go, so they can't stay for the discussion afterwards. So that's why that happens. I like to leave the room open as long as you want to use it, and that's fine. Like I remember Yolanda, we had some of these sessions that were going 6 and 7 hours on here.
Yes. So when I'm quiet, consider yourself lucky. I've got so many questions in my head at the moment that I can't figure out which one is the first one.
Yeah.
So I've been asked to do a Christmas one as well. So it's like, okay. I'll get it all organized. But yeah, at the moment it's like,
you will.
Yeah. I will.
Mike, was that a comment about the people in the session or square dancing in general?
Are you talking to me? I didn't say anything.
I've got in the chat here, it says dropping like flies. Was that the meeting?
Oh, that's when we went from like 40 down to 20 all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, that's normal. Oh, there's Barry.
You may get an email from me on occasion.
No worries.
I did 0 modules while I was listening. I think
Hello,
last
Barry.
week I drew formations. I'm trying to do time management.
You missed the presentation, Barry.
Good morning.
Yeah,
Good
you're
morning.
late.
Just a little bit late, you know. It's
You're lucky we're still here.
Actually, what I was thinking of doing, Barry, is this particular presentation, I was going to edit back down and send it down to you.
good.
Yeah, a good place to start. Did you get my email last night, by the way?
Yes, I did. I've actually just finished going through it all. I've resent you the information for the other guys here. This is BTM for November, December. It's a combined issue.
Yeah.
I've made some more adjustments. There were some things that had gone across 2 lines, and I wanted a bit more sexy artwork in there. I've got some more naked women in there. I'll try and put some naked men in for the girls, but they don't do much for me, you know.
Well, that one you had of Santa in his Speedo, you know, I took that out because I will never get that image out of my mind anymore.
I like the one of about 15 girls in their bikinis running on the beach with their little Santa hats on it. I thought that was cute.
Yeah. I didn't get your comments about Cal until after I finished that, but they can pop out. But the issue with the formatting, I couldn't figure out why you were having issues, because I pulled up the documents, and then once I copied and pasted them in, I saw the size of the page when I went multiple pages. Ah, damn, I've still got those in US letter instead of A4. That's where the problem was. So I've that, and they should be able to just be copied and popped out onto a standard A4.
Well, you fixed it, but you didn't fix it. I think from page 32 to page 38, the pages are all odd sizes again, still. Yeah.
They weren't on mine.
Yeah. On mine, they're all over the place, the same as in the PDF. For the other guys there, you know, we work with Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Word, when you transfer stuff from one computer to another computer, it will display everything totally differently. And when you're working with graphics and everything, and especially some of the graphics that people send to me in, it just goes haywire, trying to work out what graphic goes with what comment. Sometimes it takes ages to do it. It's sort of like fun, but at the same time, not that much fun.
I'm looking at the PDF I sent you. Pages are the same size.
Have a look at from page 32. Maybe it's just in the Word document again.
26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31.
Hello, Mark.
Yeah, 32 is fine. I'll pull up the Word and have a look at that.
Mark's like, time for a cigarette.
See, this is good. You can smoke all you want, and there's no secondhand smoke for us.
There's nothing worse than people like me. I'm an ex-smoker, 25 years ago, and and ex-smokers, enjoy immensely putting as much shit as possible onto smokers, and having Mark there is absolutely perfect.
Shit. Yeah, page 36 suddenly. Okay. Yeah, I see that. Have you done any reformatting?
No.
Okay, so it's jumping back to letter on page 36. That's the magic number 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've sent you I've just done a complete spell check and adjusted some bits and pieces. I've sent you the 2 new files under the title Draft 2.
Okay. Well, I have tomorrow as an RDO, so.
Oh, that's good. Well, I give you a chance to spend all day doing it. This is absolutely wonderful.
Well, I was working on it till 2 o'clock in the morning already. That's when you got my email. I have no idea, because I know I did convert all those to A4. But the big thing though, you're doing PNG files again.
No, I don't have a PNG file on my computer. For some reason.
the images that you're loading, for some reason, when you're converting, they're transferring in as PNG, because I just copied them all, saved them, and it took 25 megs of the file program right out of the size.
It's got to be something in Microsoft Word, because when I download files, they could be PNGs or GIFs or JPEGs. I make certain that every single thing is converted to a JPEG, and I eliminate any PNGs and GIFs off the computer, so I don't have any on there. Then when I do a copy and paste into the Word document, for some reason, it's transferring, it's creating them as PNG files. Bloody strange.
Yeah, I have no idea, but that's actually where the volume, there was, what have I got there? God, where are we here? Magi Square, new letter.
Mike just made a comment that when Mark got up, he walked straight through the square that's in the background there. You know, disgraceful act for a caller.
Yeah. Can you see every one of those, including just your shadow box around your titles?
Yeah.
Every one of those was a PNG file.
Huh.
And I'm pretty sure it's something on your computer, because the 2 caricatures of yours, I have changed those to JPEGs I don't know how many times, and I know you have, and they're still loading as PNGs.